What's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode number 10 of the Nati Pod. I'm your host, Ryan Townsend. Thank you so much for joining me today. So we're going to do something a little different this week. The Bengals, this week 9, they're on bye week, so I'm bringing two special guests. First podcast we're going to do this week, though, we're going to talk a little bit about the Reds. World Series just ended, talk a little bit about their offseason plans, what they're looking to do. So to do that, I bring in a former coach of mine at Urbana University, a huge Reds fanatic, huge sports fanatic, Brent West, joins me today to talk a little Reds offseason baseball. Brent, how are we doing today?
Doing well, man. I appreciate you having me on tonight. So let's get into it.
Yes, sir. I'm looking forward to it. So Reds, obviously, finished the year 31-29, went to the playoffs, lost to the Braves in 2 games. Couldn't score a run in 22 innings, kind of depressing on that side. But Brent, so from your overall opinion and watching the Reds this year in that 60 short game season, what were your takeaways from the team this year?
Well, to be honest, I had a lot of hopes for the team this year. We had a few signings that I really don't see us do too often. We made some free agent acquisitions. I thought we had a great, starting rotation. I was excited. I thought we were gonna hit a little bit better.
Absolutely, yeah.
What threw me off was how up and down we kind of were and how inconsistent we were. But again, I kind of also chalked a lot of it up, trying to chalk it up now to the 60-game season. I feel like I feel like we could have done a little bit better. But also, with the Reds making the playoffs is always a good year, right? I mean, we can
absolutely
be so mad about it, right?
No, absolutely. I just think that's one of the big things a lot of fans are overlooking. Like, yeah, we had the early exit, but like for the Reds to be in the playoffs and just to feel that excitement a little bit going down towards the end of the season and getting in there in the last final games and really just showing us that we were in the playoffs really proves to me that we can do something later on down in these coming years.
Well, and if you really look at it, they kind of did what they needed to do. I mean, other than the playoffs, when they needed to win, they did it. And I thought that was really great to see down the stretch. At no point in the year did I ever feel like we were ever out of it. I always felt like we were right there. So there's a lot of positives that you can take. If you only want to look at two games of the year being the playoffs, then, you can be that fan. But, I do think there's a lot of good to be, that we have coming to us. So.
No, absolutely, for sure. And the first good that's coming to us is leading into my first question here. Nick Castellanos just opted in last Friday.
Yes.
He's going to stay with us. He didn't want to test the market for the winter. So for you and your eyes here, how big is Castellanos opting in? How big is that for the Reds going into the next year? And how big is that for the possible free agent moves that we could make this year?
I think it's huge, honestly, because while a lot of people are really probably looking at his, average numbers, he's a guy that I think in a full 162 games, as hard as he hits the ball, we saw flashes of it last year, what he's capable of doing.
Oh, yeah.
And you got to remember, we're in, our ballpark. He's going to be fine. I think it's going to come more confidence, being there a little bit longer. And I think a lot of guys felt the pressure this year with just with the game, with this season being so short. And I think he's really going to help us be able to hopefully make a few moves in the off season because we didn't hit as well. And, the decline of, unfortunately, I would call Joey Votto.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be a guy that hopefully helps us bring some other bats into this order and get some other guys that would want to come play for us because it did show what we were capable of doing. We just need maybe a few more pieces here or there.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Now, before COVID hit, I was big on him, and I was telling my friends, like, listen, Nick Castellanos will hit 40-plus bombs in Great American. That's what his bat brings to the table. He's a gap-to-gap guy, huge power guy. And I was telling him, like, this guy can bring people to us, and that can make the order and everyone hitting. It can make them, like, feed off of him. And, like, if he's going to bring the energy, if he's going to bring the runs, like, we can feed off that too.
Oh, and it showed. The stretch where he was like the hottest hitter in baseball. We were on fire, and it was like it shows you what he's so capable of doing because we have a lot of guys that are able to get on base. We just fell short at the end, and we had guys in scoring position a lot of times, even in the playoff games.
Right.
We just didn't get those clutch hits, and I think that'll come. It was unfortunate that we had to see it the way it happened this year, but I think, he's a guy that, like you said, I think he'll be a 40 home run guy in Great American. I think he's going to be a 100 RBI guy. He's a 60. He hit 60 doubles in 1 year, didn't he? Like before he came. So it's like,
oh,
I mean,
yeah.
come on. The guy's a hitter, and he's a corner outfielder that is a solid hitter. That is also a guy that wants to be an everyday outfielder on the corner, and we haven't had a true stud out there since, I guess you could say, Jay Bruce, but even he, to
Yeah,
me,
you could probably say
didn't
that.
always fill expectations.
Right.
I'm hoping Castellanos is better than Jay Bruce. If we're gonna be honest, I'm hoping he's better. He's much better than Jay Bruce.
Yeah, I think if he has a solid year this year and then coming in, hopefully he can opt back in. 'Cause he's still got that opt-in, opt-out at the end of this year.
Yes.
He can come back in the next year after that and the year after that. I think he's going to prove that he can be there, especially with the pop that we've seen from him and all that.
Oh, yeah.
So, but turn it over to the other side of the team, the pitching side. If you guys saw Twitter last night, you saw the Reds made a qualifying offer to Trevor Bauer, who just got named one of 3 Cy Young finalists about an hour ago. So what's your take on what the Reds have to do to get Trevor Bauer? Because I'm telling you right now, he's going to decline the offer. Unless something wild happens and teams don't come after him, he's going to decline the offer. So what do the Reds have to do to really try and bring Trevor Bauer back in?
That's a tough one because nowadays I don't know what players are more into it for. Like, I understand he needs to get paid.
Yes.
He's earned that. I'm not one of those guys that think players are greedy for wanting to get money. You know what I mean? But for us to bring him back, man, I hope that he just has enough of a relationship and believes in, like, the pitching staff that we had with him and just what maybe we will do, bringing in other free agents possibly before. But the thing is, what can we have to sign? Like, his contract probably dictates a lot of our free agent signing too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know. That's a tough question because, and that's probably the hardest one that I was probably thinking about, because I don't know what we need to do, because honestly, what would have helped was scoring a run for him in that playoff game. I mean, I don't know. I think he loves the management in Great America. I think he loves the Reds. I think he likes the fans. I think he had a great year, but I also think he's realistic, and I think he's very competitive. And I think if he thinks a team that is better, and I think he's a guy that wants to win. So I don't even know if it's always about the money for him. So that's what makes it tough. And, I hope that we did enough just showing what we're capable of and where we're probably heading. I think we're going in the right direction. I think maybe Joey Votto needs to have a conversation with him. I mean, he's a respected guy in the major leagues, you know what I mean? And I think he's a guy that he's stayed in Cincinnati his whole career. Why? You know what I mean? He wanted to win here, and he's a guy people respect, and you never know. I don't think there's anything we can do crazy to make him make that decision. I just hope we've already done enough, I guess, is the best answer.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, the thing that you're talking about with the management, I think the big thing the Reds tried to do this offseason is probably not to keep Bauer, but like they brought in Kyle Boddy and all these dudes from Driveline. He's a huge Driveline guy. Yep. He gets along with Derek Johnson really well. And he told us at the end of the year, because I watched a lot of his vlogs or vlogs, whatever you would call them. He was one of those guys who was saying, I had the most fun I've ever had playing baseball in Cincinnati.
And I watched the podcast with CC Sabathia. And it had Sonny Gray and him before the year, right? Before the year started. And just like, they seemed like they just bonded so well. And they played together. I didn't know this. They played together on like Team USA back in the day.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
And like, so like, it was pretty cool to see, like, they know each other. And like, Sonny loves Cincinnati. And I just think it's a good situation. I think it's a better situation in Cincinnati than people think, but I also maybe think that because I want to be hopeful. So I don't know, man, I would love to have him back, but he's one of those guys where if he were to choose to go somewhere else, I wouldn't like hate him. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely not. And that's just one of the things that people have been talking about too. Like, free agency started. The one big thing that I look into with us being a small market team is he has come out and said publicly, I want to only sign 1-year deals. I think with the Reds and what we have in free agency and our cap, I think we have enough to offer him a 1-year, $31 million, $30 million, whatever he's looking for. But the thing is like, is another team going to offer him a 1 year $60 million, a 1 year $55 million? You know what I mean? Like, can we, if he's going to stay with the 1 year offers that he wants, can we continue to compete with that and have the Reds in the clubhouse really done enough to do that?
Well, I don't think so. I mean, I don't think we can compete with a crazy 1 year offer. I mean, I think 30 million, like you said, is definitely feasible and something that's reasonable. But I also think if we're going to do that, we have to be in a win now scenario and thought and mindset, right? So like we have to do it. Like if we're going to sign him to a one, I almost don't want to sign him if we're only going to do the 1 year, if we're not going to be able to like win it next year. You know what I mean? Like, but like, I also was the one like, and again, I'm a huge Reds fan, so it doesn't necessarily count. But I really believe that if this team, like if we got past the Braves, we were going to be pretty dangerous. Like I really thought so. Because I thought the Braves personally going into the playoffs were the best team in baseball. So like us going up against them, I was like, damn, like that's going to be tough. So seeing how well we competed against them compared to how some other teams did, and you know, again, it was because of our pitching, and I think we bought into the way that program is and that style. So I'm hoping that you know, if we are able to offer him that $30 million, that he'd be willing to think about it because he believes we're in a win now situation. I don't think we'll be able to do anything if it's some crazy thing. Like if New York comes in at like 1 year, $45 million, I don't think we're going to be able to do that.
No, I think at that point we're probably going to have to back out. You know, thank you for your time being here. We appreciate you being here, but like it's just what we have to do. Like I said, with being a small market team, it's really hard to judge what other teams are going to do, and they're obviously basing it off our number. Like if a small market team's going to offer this, I think we can offer this, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly. So we'll see. And again, like it was a huge help. Obviously, I mean he's a freak. It was amazing having him. So much fun to watch. But if it's going to take away from us being able to sign potentially 3 other quality players, I'd almost rather take the depth, depending, you know?
Yeah.
I'd love to have Trevor Bauer, but if he's the only person we can get and we don't get anything else, then some guys got to step up, I guess. But, you know, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, I think so for sure. So speaking of the depth a little bit, going back off to that, Anthony DeSclafani, Freddie Galvis, and Tyler Thornburg, right now looking to be probably some of the most important Reds free agents that have come out. Looks to be almost the only Reds free agents that we have this offseason. You know, everyone else under contract and all that. So with these 3 names, obviously Disco being a starting pitcher, going to the back end of the bullpen, Galvis playing a lot of middle infield for us, you know, a couple DH here and there, and then Thornburg really getting some innings out of relief in the pen, a little late in the season or not. Do the Reds go after all 3 of these guys? Do the Reds go after one of these guys? Do they mix it around? Like, what do you think the future is for these 3 guys in Cincinnati?
So, unfortunately, the one that I think is going to be probably definitely let go is going to be Galvis. And I think that just because, I mean, how old is he? He's you know, 30. He's not necessarily young. He's not necessarily old, but he's been somewhat clutch for us in times, I think. Like, I actually enjoy him at the plate. Like, I think I like to think he's a better hitter than his numbers show.
Right.
But his numbers also show that he's a very average or below average hitter. He's not a crazy, you know, I mean, we were playing Kyle Farmer over him at times.
Yeah.
And I mean, and I wasn't a huge Kyle Farmer fan. That's just me. But I think Galvis is probably going to go, even though I actually do like Galvis. But I think he's one we probably let go. The pitching is something that I'd like. I'm a big DeSclafani fan, even though his numbers in the shortened season weren't the best.
Right. Yeah.
He's shown with us that he's capable. You know what I mean? He's got the ability. I think he's got to be used correctly, and I think if he's healthy, he's a decent pitcher. He's got good stuff. He throws the ball well. This shortened year, it's just hard for me to count. It counts, but it's hard for me to like look at that and base any of his numbers off of that like one freak year is how I
yeah.
The one I don't know a ton about is Thornburg, honestly, and this is his first year with us.
Yeah.
But he did decent. Like, I actually liked him. I didn't know what you thought, being a pitcher. between him and DeScalfani, because we have a lot of young talent in our minors. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So like, I like what we have down there. What do you think we need to do? Like, what is your opinion?
I think the big thing, probably going with Thornburg here a little bit, is like if you're talking about, the farm system, we've got guys like Lodolo and Green and a couple other guys down there that lead into my next question. Just like if we want those guys to play, I don't know how important Thornburg is to us a little bit in the bullpen relief. Like you said, he had a couple good games out of the pen for us. I looked up stats today. He really only had like one, hateful game, and it wasn't even that hateful. I know 3 hits, 2 runs. Like, I mean, he was a solid 1 inning and a third guy coming out of there. I think Galvis, if we can't, for some reason, if we don't seem to play Jose Garcia a lot next year, or they want to keep playing Kyle Farmer there, I really think we have to keep Galvis. He's a switch hitting guy for us.
I agree.
Just being versatile in what he can do, obviously at the plate in the field, I think it can help us. Now, my opinion with Disco is a little different than yours. I liked him at first, even, before the shortened season, but there were just some points last year and even this year in the shortened season where like my feelings with him just wavered a little bit. Like Malley, I thought has done really well in the past. I think he's outpitched Disco a little bit, but like with like talking Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo, guys that the Reds envision being starters, like, do we have the need to hold on to DeScalfani? That's my big thing. If we want these farm guys to play, do we have the need to hold on to one of our back end starters?
Probably not. No. And that's the thing, I don't know how they want to use him anymore. Because then they have him more in the pen a little bit this year, right?
Yeah, it was like back and forth at the back end of the rotation a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, we had those 7-inning doubleheaders where we had to go back and forth, move guys around. And then like, I think it was the last 15-ish games, he was in the back end of the bullpen. So like they were using him in different situations, trying to figure out what he could be for us possibly next year.
Yeah. I guess the thing where I get stuck sometimes is because we've had him for so long and we've seen what he's capable of doing. I know what's there. And with Thornburg, I just don't know enough about him, and I guess that's where I just get so weary. But he seemed, the few times I did watch him, I did like watching Thornburg pitch. So, but again, I would love, and I love that we're going to get into it later, but I talk about it in baseball all the time. I get the minor league system, but I hate how long it takes sometimes some of these young guys to get up, man.
Dude, I know.
And I don't know if it's just us, because I see other people playing their guys earlier, and it's starting to become more of a trend lately.
Right.
But like, I mean, dude, Mike Leake, we started Mike Leake with us going ever to the minors. Where's Hunter Green?
Yeah.
Where's Hunter at? Come on,
dude,
man.
I know.
I want to see these guys, and I feel like we lose guys a lot because we keep them in the minors so long, and then we trade them for a guy that's supposed to do really well, and they just do okay, And I hate, because we do draft well, and we do have a good farm system. I want to see some of these young guys play. So, I'm going to trust your opinion when it comes to the pitching, because that is kind of what you do. So if you think we might need to move on from old Anthony, I think it might be time then.
Yeah, so leading into my next question here, we'll get into that a little bit with the farm system. So Nick Lodolo, Hunter Green, and Tyler Stevenson. Okay, these are big key pieces that I think, for us at least, they need to be up on the 40-man next year. In one way or another, they got to be up. Because like you're talking about, the one thing that really gets me, it happened with Senzel last year because, Shelver had that 0 for 26 start. Winker had that 3 for 25 start. The big thing that a lot of people miss is the arbitration. If we hold guys in the farm system long enough, and then they can come up after arbitration, we get that extra year of them. But if we bring them up early, we lose that extra year. And I think that's what the Reds were wanting to do this year, a little bit with Hunter Green and Stevenson not playing them that much. But the big thing for me is, like, I think all these guys, for us to be able to make a run and really not necessarily move past our veteran guys, but like to see the future of Cincinnati, these guys need to be up next year, and they need to get a substantial amount of time next year. What are your thoughts on these three guys?
With Green and Lodolo?
Green, Lodolo, and Stevenson.
Agreed, 100%. I would love to see them up and playing consistently, unless there's an issue, meaning like injury or something you're worried about. Do we need them? I mean, they're proven. They're the top. I mean, Lodolo and Green are the top two prospects in our system, right? I mean,
right.
I'm sick of watching. I mean, it took Winker 4 years of being the number one prospect in our system to get a game in the pros. And not that he's done the greatest, but he hasn't done bad. I mean, he had a great – he was awesome last year to watch. It was great seeing it. I'm here we go. This is – and it's so confident. And I'm like, look, this is what we have. And there's another one that we didn't put in that, but you mentioned him earlier, Jose Garcia. I'd like to see him play more. Why not? If these guys, you have them so highly rated, you believe in them. We've seen, we've seen Tyler Stevenson play. He can play.
He can play.
I mean, him and is Barnhart still there? He's still there, right?
Barnhart's still there. So, I think Casale's still going to be there too.
Okay, so I mean, but if Stevenson's the man, why are we waiting? Let's get him up there. I mean, you got the Cardinals got Kisner waiting in the wings under Yachty and all them. We need to get our young guys in there. I hate thinking about the Cardinals. I'm not a Cardinals fan. My brother is. But I see what they do with their mind, and they play their guys. They bring them up. They give them chances, and I'd like to see us try a little bit more of that, especially with our pitching. We need it.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see Green. I'm a big Hunter Green fan. I've been a huge Green fan, and I want to see a lefty. So I'm waiting for Lodolo, man. When's the last time we had a guy like that that's supposed to be like this guy?
It's been a while.
I mean, I can't tell you. I mean – Johnny Cueto, he's a right. I don't know the last lefty pitcher I've seen in my lifetime that's been really worth it, other than Aroldis Chapman.
Obviously, yeah.
As a starter for us, though, right? Like that was part of the reason we got rid of him, because he wouldn't be a starter. So it's like I couldn't tell you. I mean, I really can't. So it's like I'm excited for this Lodolo guy. I'm excited for Green. Stevenson, I loved watching the little bits of what we got from him last year. So I'm excited, but we've got to do it. We have to let them try. I mean, I don't understand why not,
Yeah, I completely agree with that too, in the sense that when we're talking about these guys, and obviously, I mentioned Garcia a little bit, but like Garcia is the future at shortstop. Stevenson is the future behind the plate. And I remember hearing a couple of weeks ago, Nick Kroll was talking to Lance McAllister on 700 WLW, and he was talking about the progression of Hunter Green and a couple of guys like Lodolo. Hunter Green threw 100 innings at Prasco this year. And Nick Kroll's like, hey, we just had to get him ready. He just came off Tommy John, but we have to get him ready because we could use him in the back end of a rotation. He could be a starter for us. He could be a bullpen guy for us. Like, those are the key pieces that in certain situations this year, if we have those guys up, and obviously next year, you don't know what's going to happen, if it's going to be a 60-game season, 75, 100. Like, when we have the depth like that in the bullpen and in the rotation, Lodolo and Green can help. And then when we're talking about the lineup and the order, Stevenson's got a bat. Jose Garcia's got a bat. I mean, Barry Larkin's talking about Jose Garcia. He's the next best Red shortstop. He's literally been saying it since spring training.
Hey, if you're going to talk about Barry Larkin, I mean, that's my guy. That's literally my favorite player. He's the reason I wore number 11. I love Barry Larkin. That's my favorite. So, like, that's why I'm a big same thing. Like, I love Garcia because I've heard the rumblings about him. Like, they talk about him, and I want to see it. Like, well, I don't understand – and it's nothing against – I get what Galvis brings. I get it. But, why aren't we playing Garcia a little bit more? Like, I got it. It was 60 games. I get it. But, like, give him a chance. And I just want to see him get the opportunity. And I understood Green this year. I knew he was coming off Tommy John. I get it. But, like, Lodolo, he's never been hurt for us, right? Like, knock on wood. But, like, he's just they've been just taking their time, right? I mean – and again, these guys aren't old. I mean, I'm complaining about guys that are, the oldest one is Stevenson, I think, at like 24.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, so we got these young guys that I just want them to come up, but I'm like, I'm sitting here watching Fernando Tatis just go insane. And I'm like, these young guys that get opportunities, if they're supposed to be studs and you think they're a stud and they show everything that they are, why are we waiting? I just don't. And I get what you brought up, the arbitration, right? I get it. But it's like sometimes I think, you know what? Screw the arbitration. If they're great and they do their thing, we're going to sign them anyway and pay them. So let's just get them up and get them rocking. I would like to see us be a little more aggressive with some of that sometimes.
Yeah, I just think the big thing when we're talking about arbitration, like when being a guy in the front office, I think – you guys have to understand is like, obviously, the arbitration, they're trying to think of the future, but at the same time, like talking about Bauer, he wants to go to a team that wants to win now. if you want to prove to a guy like Trevor Bauer that we're in a win now mode, you almost have to say, screw arbitration. These guys are coming up. These guys are playing, and it's time for these guys to start getting in the mix of things and getting stuff ready to roll.
And realistically, right, like not every single person's going to work out, right? So like you don't have to worry about all of them having to get paid. Now, if you run into a beautiful scenario like that, and then you got to figure it out when that happens. But wouldn't you rather kind of have that? Wouldn't you rather have that situation? I don't understand why you'd rather hope and wait that and just hope it works. I just think give them a chance, man. And I feel like baseball's going that way. You're seeing, like I said, you're seeing a lot of younger guys playing. They're coming up sooner. I'd like to see us. I think we're going to see them this year, and I'm excited about it. I think it's time because it's going to be tight again. I mean, we had how many teams again from the Central in the playoffs? 4. So like, we have to keep competing. You can't slow down. So we'll see what they do. I hope they can continue to go in the right direction. You know, this is definitely still the last 10 years of Reds baseball have been the best 10 years in my lifetime. So I got to still trust the process of what we're trying to do and where we're going. And I believe in it until they really go back downhill. So we'll see what happens this year, right?
Yeah, I think so too. Just wanting to believe and making sure, like, if these guys get up and we see the real deal, that's where we're like, all right, Reds front office, you know what we're doing a little bit. Like, let's keep these guys rolling, keep the farm system growing and all that. So the players on that side, I think, are going to be huge pieces for us in the offseason, just understanding where they're going, what they can be for us next year, and all of that works. Hopefully it works out in the sense there.
There's one person that, and he's not a farm system guy, but it's to a guy that I think is important to our success this year, but I can't remember his name. It sounds so bad, but it's that center fielder that we signed this year, the Japanese guy or the Korean.
Oh, Shogo Akiyama.
Akiyama. I think that guy is a guy that in 162 games sat at the front of that lineup could be an actual leadoff hitter for us. I think this year was tough. I think this year was very tough with Bell thinking, you know, he moved a lot of guys around. He was trying to do a lot.
Ton of guys. He did it all the time.
I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt, right? Because we did make the playoffs and it did work, right? You can only say so much about – you can disagree with it, but we made the playoffs, right? So, I mean, you know, I got frustrated at times, but because I think that I really like him. I think he takes great at bats. I think his approach is there. I just think it was a first year and it was a weird year and he never got in a real rhythm.
Right.
You know, I think you give that guy a spring training in a full 162 games, he hits up, you know, 275 plus. I'll say that. I'll say that this year he'll hit 275 plus.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to it because he can play outfield, man. He can
he can play outfield.
If he can hit, we'll be fine. And that's a huge – because I know we got power. We'll have the power. I mean, good gosh, the Aristides Aquino or whatever. I love that guy too. Yeah. I thought that was weird that he barely played all year and then started the playoff game. I don't know about you, but that threw me a little off.
It was just mixing and matching lineups, like you're talking about with Farmer being at shortstop too. Like we started Kyle Farmer in one of the podcasts. I was talking to my old athletic director. We started Kyle Farmer in 9 games this season.
Yeah.
And then in game 61, we're going to start Kyle Farmer at shortstop. Like
that's where I was like, why is Galvis not in? And that's where I was like, they must not care about him because I didn't understand that. Like switch hitting shortstop who's proven to get big hits when we need it. Freddie Galvis in the clutch moment has hit home runs for us. He makes his plays. I like him. I just don't know how the Reds feel about it. That's why I think they're going to let him go. I really do. And I don't agree with it, but I think they will.
Yeah, I think that's just a big thing too. Talking about like the whole lineups and the matchup situation, which actually leads me into our final question of this podcast. We're having a great talk here with Brent West here. So David Bell, we talked about a little bit, dived into it a little bit. Last 2 years, man, I'm gonna come out and say it. I have not been a big David Bell fan. I just haven't. I think in the first year, 162 games, he was getting his feet wet a little bit, but the whole double switch and I have to take a pitcher out here, I have to take a pitcher out there, I have to pinch hit this guy here. The card is telling me to do this. The card tells me to do that. This guy can only go 5 innings, less than 75 pitches. I have to save arms, blah, blah, blah. Like, and we're talking about, you know, the wild card game where Kyle Farmer's starting, Aquino's starting, Galvis isn't playing. Like, making that double switch right there on the double steal. You burn Casale, you got to bring in Barnhart. I mean, like, what do you think in the offseason? Now, obviously, this isn't a move we have to make, but David Bell, looking at his team, what's coming up, and him being a manager with his coaching staff, what do you think David Bell really needs to focus on in the offseason to not necessarily correct these mistakes, but just capitalize on making better lineups or just making better timely decisions as a manager?
Well, I'm gonna hopefully chalk up some of this year to the short stuff, right? I'm hoping,
Yeah.
because the way we looked on the base paths in the playoffs and some of the moments that we had in some games was extremely questionable, to say the least, and that's 100% on him. You know, I don't hate or love him at all right now. I don't have much of a thought on David Bell with where he's at. I think I would like to see him trust. I don't know if he does a lot on his own. I don't know if he's I feel like he's way too analytical, right? He
Oh,
uses
yeah.
way too much of that. But is he doing this on his own? Is he trusting his coaches? Is what's he doing? You know, and if he's
Right.
doing it on his own, what I'd like to say is I'd like to see him trust his coaches, because I don't I don't like switching guys, and I'm also hoping. I mean, wasn't it a lot more this year compared to the last? I mean,
Yeah.
he does that. He does a lot of double switches, and he does do a lot of weird stuff that we're not used to seeing, because he I think he thinks about the game really old school. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like, as old school as you can without bunting, right?
Yeah.
But I also thought this year he got caught in a lot of situations overthinking.
Oh,
Doing
yeah.
too much. Like, I'm like, what are we doing? I mean, I hope that next year I'd like to see David Bell. I just like to see him trust a lineup, for one, trust a few guys, not make so many switches. I'd like to see our bullpen be a little more effective.
Yep.
And I don't know how much he can have an effect on that, but I also think he needs to not, like you were saying, if our starters are our best part of our team, we sometimes need to let them roll a little bit longer.
Absolutely.
I get saving arms, but some of that saving arms stuff is for the birds, just for better terms, right? I mean,
Yeah.
look at some of these older pitchers and what they did and they threw. I mean, I think obviously arm injuries are definitely real and you need to be wary of such, but I
Oh,
also
yeah.
think these athletes in the major leagues are freaks, right? I mean,
Oh,
they're
yeah.
freaks. I mean, you don't need to freak out and they don't all need to be thrown like a 12-year-old that's growing and can only throw 70 pitches today. Like, that's their job. They can throw 100. I don't understand. Like you talk to these old school pitchers, they say the same stuff. They don't
Oh, yeah.
understand why these guys are not pitching. So I'd like to see him let our guys go a little longer. If we get Trevor Bauer, we better figure out how to score runs for him.
Yeah.
But I really think David Bell needs to just let the guys play a little bit more and not put the game so much on him. And what I mean by that is just simplify it. Don't make so many changes. Trust what you got out there sometimes. And I think in 162 games he would be a little bit better about it. I think this year got a
Right.
little carried away, to say the least, and we'll see what happens. But again, I'm not a huge David Bell fan. I don't hate him yet, but I'm not. He's done nothing to really make me love him, but
Right.
he's done a lot to make me question.
Oh, no, absolutely. And I think the big thing that I always focus on when looking at David Bell, I wouldn't say a prime example. I'd say a big example is, obviously, if you're a baseball fan, you watch World Series Game 6. Snell is dominating the Dodgers,
Yes.
dominating them. Their
Yes.
top three guys are 0 for 6 with 6 Ks, seeing him through. And he takes them out because, Kevin Cash is an analytics guy. And I get it. You got to the World Series by analytics, so you kind of have to trust that. But I also think at a time, you also have to know when to go from analytics to having just a normal baseball feel. And like we talked about, Urbana, just having a feel for the game of baseball. I think that's
Oh
also
yeah.
where David Bell lacks. He's too much analytical, and he can't move like that barrier line. Hey, I got to go have a feel here. It's just like, see the card, trust the card. Like, how long does that take you as a manager after seeing that mistake how long does that take you to get over to the other side?
I think at the end of the day, you have to have a feel. And what I'm worried about with that statement right there is it's something you either got or you don't.
Yeah.
And I think that's real. Like, I think when it comes to coaching, having a feel like that, I don't know if you necessarily learn that. I mean, he's he's an older guy. He's been around the game forever. It's not like he's new to it. Like it's so funny that you brought up the Blake Snell situation, because I was literally thinking the same thing. I was going to ask you, do you think he does that? Do you think David Bell pulls him? And I think he does. And that sucks.
I really want to say he does too. Like, just thinking if it's Trevor Bauer too. Imagine if that's Trevor. I mean,
actually, but then again, I watched a lot of games of Bauer in 100 pitches or more.
And he's not like I mean, Snell probably, like, I don't know, because he was one of those guys in our 2 games with Atlanta. He was really overthinking things. Like, imagine if we were in the World Series against the Rays. Imagine the amount of overthinking that would go on in a 7-game series. I
don't know if I would have been able to make it through it. And it sucks saying that, but it's so true. Like, oh my gosh, I know. I think he pulls him, and I don't know if he's ready for that moment yet. You know?
Yeah. No. I don't know. It's just like, me and my dad always talk about it. My friends always talk about it. Like, I'm a for analytics in baseball. I think there are certain analytics that you have to have in baseball. Trevor Bauer's talked about that with the pitching side and the hitting side. I'm not a huge guy on the whole launch angle thing, but like, there's certain analytics that you have to look at when making lineups. But like, it comes down to the end of the day. Lou Piniella said it best. You got to manage with your gut.
Yep.
If you don't have a gut, you cannot be a manager in the major league. I don't care if it's 1980 or if it's 2020. You have to have a gut.
You gotta have, and that's I mean, that's what it comes down to. I mean, I don't know how anyone looks at that game as a coach who's been around baseball forever and sits there and goes, yeah, he it's his second hit he's given up today. I'm gonna pull Blake Snell, our best pitcher, in a game, the biggest game of any of our lives. And I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you can, because he's going to sit back and say, I trusted my process. And that's what he's going to say. But I would never be able to live with myself doing that, because I would have known better. There's just no way. You got to have a feel on that, or your gut instinct. There's no way he was going, yeah, this is the right move. Like, I just feel like the whole time walking out there, he had to be going, man, I hope this shit works. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what else, because golly. I mean, when they pulled him, I'm sitting there thinking, if I'm hitting, right, because that's what I think about a lot when I put myself in situations, right? I wasn't a pitcher. So, like, when I coach now, I have to stand in the box to really be able to help tell my pitchers what I'm seeing with it, more so than if I sit behind them at the pitcher's mound. Mm-hmm. So, like, that's how I do it, right? Well, I don't know how you could have ever taken that guy out.
I mean, if I'm a Dodgers fan, or like even Mookie Betts in that situation, like coming up, seeing him, I'm 0 for 2 at 2Ks against this guy. This guy's owning me. This guy's owning the team right now. We take him out after 75 pitches. We got a new guy in. I'm like, oh, here we go. This is go time. This is where it breaks the game open.
I would have been. That's what I was going through. I was like, I would have been like, oh, thank God it's not him. I'm coming up to anybody else. I could care less. Like, oh, thank you. And the worst part about it is I've felt that exact same feeling in games when pitchers have been balling, and then either they're on a pitch count or their coach just thinks it's time for them to be out. And I'm like, man, you should have just let that dude roll, because you probably would have won. And now we're coming back. And it's so crazy how in all of baseball, I mean, even at the level I coach, you see it. They take out their best pitcher, their bullpen comes in, our guys start hitting. We did it at Urbana when I played. We did it in high school. I see it with the Reds. I see it in the pros. I see it in it's so crazy. So, like, to me, that's a real thing. How's that not a stat? Where are the analytics on that? Where are the analytics on when a starter comes out, how many runs get scored after? Where are those analytics? Because that's got to be something. I mean, there's no way that – I mean, I don't know. Where's the Andy? Was it Mike Mussina or Andy Pett? Who was it who yelled at the coach that he wasn't coming out? He yelled at Joe Torre. Do you remember that?
Yeah, oh man,
I think it's Mussina.
I think it's Mussina too. Yeah,
and I'm like, that's what Blake Snell needed, a little bit of that. Like, I'm not coming out, dude. Like, no. Like,
yeah,
this is the last game of this year for us, possibly. You need me to finish this.
Yeah.
And that's my thing, too. So what are you going to do? You're going to go to your bullpen now in Game 6, and if you win, then what? Then what? You're going to have nothing but not even Blake. I mean, you have – who was next? I don't even know who their next guy was.
I have no clue. I couldn't even tell you.
Is it Snell and who's the other one there?
Glasnow?
Yeah, and he'd already thrown 5, right? Didn't he throw Game 5?
Mm-hmm.
So unless he's coming on, super short rest because of the way the playoffs work this year, I just, I think you let Snell go in that game because he's your best guy and you need your bullpen to do what you need to do on Game 7. I think you let Snell ride until you can't, and that's how I would have done that. So going back to David Bell, I think he needs to have a better feel next year. He needs to trust his lineup. He needs to find a lineup. He needs to find something and stick with it.
Yeah.
And he has to put our guys need to be more properly prepared. The playoff game showed that we were not ready for that moment at all.
I would agree with that.
Whatever happened on that steal play, I don't know who to blame that on. I'm trying to not blame it on Bell. I'm trying to really say they really just screwed it up. But if he called that after pinch hitting like he did, he's I don't even know if I want him back for year 3.
I mean, the thing when we're talking about that play is like I've talked about it before. You bring in Davidson, the lefty killer. We're not getting guys in proper scoring position. Yeah, I get it. You want to get a run for Bauer, but if you're calling that, you let Davidson get one pitch, and then we don't even run a double steal correctly. You just burn your catcher and Casale, and you burn Davidson for one pitch. Like,
it was horrible. It was literally one of the worst things I've ever seen, and I couldn't believe I watched it live after watching. That was the first game of that series, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I was like, I watched all these innings just to watch that. I watch that when I go coach sometimes. Like, I watch 12-year-olds do that. I don't expect these professionals. I'm telling my guys to go watch these guys on TV, and they're doing that. So, and it's hard to not blame that on Bell, right? Like, if my guys do that, I'm blaming myself. Like, I obviously haven't taught them what to do. So it's like, I really just need to see him step it up a little bit, and it's not wins and losses. He's done okay in that category. He's not been the worst wins and losses guy we've ever had.
No.
But he's not the best X's and O's guys we've ever had, and he doesn't seem like he really has a great feel. It seems like he's got a little bit more talent than people realize, and I just hope we're not wasting it, So
yeah,
I'd like to see him have our guys better prepared, have a little bit more feel, and stick with the lineup. Those would probably be my three next steps for him.
Yeah, and honestly, man, I completely 100% agree. I mean, just talking about the lineup situation, because I coach too a little bit here in the summer, like you do. When I have a lineup that not I enjoy, but like if my guys are successful in that lineup, there's no point in changing it around. The old saying is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Why would you go around and change a lineup that you haven't even let pan out for a couple games? I mean, I think it was, oh man, what's the number? I know I had this number in my head. Like, I counted the amount of days or different lineups that we had in back-to-back days. I mean, they were different almost every day. Like, guys were moving from the 5 to the 3 or the 2 to the 7 or the 1 to the 5. Like,
no consistency. No one could get set. No one could get in a rhythm. It was terrible.
Like, if you don't let guys get comfortable and let them get in a rhythm like you're talking about, or even see how they pan out next to guys in a lineup, like, there's almost no point in chalking it up and going to a new one. Like, you have to see if it works.
Well, and here's my thing. If you're going to panic, right, if you're going to panic about trying to find a lineup because it's a shortened season, do you really think 87 different lineups is going to be the best option? I feel like if you're that nervous, you just pick one that works. And if that one doesn't work, you can switch it maybe one more time. And then you just deal with what you got. I mean,
yeah,
switching it like you said, I mean, I remember that. It was like a week and a half, 2 weeks where we like put out a different lineup every single day.
Oh, it was awful.
I was like, what are we doing? Like, I mean, I actually like Votto and some of the upfront spots because There have been times in the past where I wish he'd be more aggressive as our 3-hole hitter.
Right.
But at the same time, like he kind of clogs up the bases. I'd rather see him at like the 7 than the 1. The 1?
Yeah.
Really? The leadoff? I mean, I know he's got a good eye, but Jesus, come on, man. Like, no. Like,
no, not at
he
all.
doesn't steal bases. He's not fast. He literally should have scored from second in the playoffs and didn't. And we're going to bat that guy leadoff. I mean, nothing against Joey. I love Joey Votto, but like, I get the thought on base percentage, get good eye. I get it. But like,
yeah,
that works just as well at the bottom of the order, knocking guys in late innings. Like, I don't think he needs to be leadoff. So
no.
We'll see. You know, I don't know. The more we talk about it, I really don't know if I like David Bell.
I mean, I just think it's like knowing your pieces too, just in the lineups, like just knowing your piece. Like you're talking about Shogo. Like you think that guy could be a 275 plus hitter in the leadoff spot. And obviously, like, you know, having 60 games, how many times did he hit in the leadoff spot? Like if you want that guy to be a leadoff guy, you have to let him hit the leadoff.
Yeah, and here's my thing. If you're not going to bat him leadoff, to me, you put him 9th. Like, I think the 9-hole is a huge, like, spot in the order. It's one of the most undervalued spots in the batting order. It flips you back over.
Yep.
I think it's so important. And I liked him there. Like, I liked when we were batting our pitcher 8th and we were doing some stuff with some weird stuff. If Galvis hits 9th, I actually loved when he was down there, too, if he ever switched down to there. But I don't know. I love Shogo. I really do. I think he's a beast. I like Aquino. I'd like to see him get some more playing time. I mean, the dude put up a freak year the first year with Bell.
Absolutely.
How do you not give him more opportunity and then you start him in the playoffs? How does that? I don't even get that.
No, like putting him at Prasco and then calling him up, letting him go, come back down, and then he's making the playoff roster and he's starting in a game. It's just like. I'm telling you,
it's just all over the place. It's like, did he even know what he was doing? Was he just drawing out of a hat? Like, I don't know what he's doing. It's, you know, the more I think about it, it's just, and subs. There are definitely a lot of subs, like doubles in the middle of games, taking guys out. I'm like, what are we doing? Like, I watched my roommate's a big Braves fan. I watched a lot of Braves and a lot of Reds baseball. We made way more substitutions than the Braves during any given game. Way more, like not even close.
I believe it.
And I didn't really think about it until we talked about it. And because there was a time where I got frustrated this year and probably didn't watch a couple games, like because I bought the MLB package because that was the only sport that was on.
Oh yeah.
And I was watching every game and I was just getting frustrated, I think, because of what was going on. Like, no consistency. The lineup's changing every day. I'm like, how do you expect them to do anything, David? You know, our starting pitching looks great. Our bullpen's up and down. And I think it starts from the top down. I really do. I think we got to be better prepared. And David Bell, I think it's a big year for him. He's got to show that he's got that. He's able to do that, you know. He's not just the guy that people like because, you know, he has history in Cincinnati.
Right.
And that's, you know, if we're going to do that, where's Barry at, man?
Yeah, where's Barry Larkin at? Let's get
Where's Barry? And I think I don't know if I've heard this or if I'm just saying it wrong. Maybe I'm talking out my ass a little bit. I don't know. But I think Barry doesn't really have interest in being the head coach.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Else I would think he would probably, you know, be one of the guys in the next coming year if it doesn't work out.
Either that or until they let my guy back into MLB.
Yeah.
My man Pete.
Yep. I'd probably say the same thing too. Like, cause I've always thought like, dude, Barry talks about all these guys. He's at spring training. He watches, like, does he want to coach? Like, does he have a desire to do that? Like, I don't know.
He likes being around it. I know he likes being like around the Reds. I just don't know if he has really any interest in being a head coach. And it sucks because I think I'd even just take a third base coach as him being our infield coach. Like that was one of my favorite things. I hate talking about the Braves so often, but like Ron Washington, like being their third base coach, dude, that's amazing. He's awesome. Like,
he's a great coach.
Love Ron Washington. So like, I think I would love to see Barry Larkin maybe have a little more influence on our guys and on the team. And if that could be a thing, that would be awesome. Maybe we can talk that into existence. That would be pretty cool.
No, that would be awesome, man. I mean, just anything that could help the staff propel a little bit and just like overall the decision making and all that. But, you know, I just want to put my faith in David Bell a little bit, seeing the lineups and like seeing the guys that he has. I want to put my faith in him. I want to hope and pray that he can bounce back in year 3. I hope he improves a little bit, and I hope we can build something off it really, because like your manager gets it going, just as you know, man.
Sure.
The manager gets it going.
Oh, for sure. I'm hoping the same thing. We wouldn't be good fans if we were pulling for him to do bad, right? I mean,
oh no,
we definitely want him to do well. It's just we have to have expectations also, right?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree with that. So actually, that's going to do it, everybody. Brett, thank you so much for coming out tonight, man. Brent West again, one of my guys from Urbana. Huge baseball guy, huge Reds guy. We had a fantastic talk tonight, talking Reds baseball in the offseason, just baseball in general, man. This is an awesome talk. Thank you so much for coming out today, man.
Yeah, man, no problem. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Tune in to more content this week with the Nasty Natty Pod. Jamal McKinney, founder of the Juice Alert, will join me talking about Joe Burrow, number 1 overall pick, how he's done start the year, what the Bengals need to do in the second half of the season to really propel what we can do in the second half. So thanks again, everyone. Thanks for coming out. Tune in for more content this week, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks again.